Live. It says live.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we're live.
Cool. Thanks to Emily for jumping in and saving the day. Cool. Hey, mates. Given that we're going to record this, I'll start from the top. So, as mentioned, I'm Alex. This is Tom from Gantry, where we're building. So Gantry is an all-in-one infrastructure toolkit for blockchain nodes. And today we're gonna give you a quick demo of it. We're gonna talk about, I guess, our aims for the business and who Gantry is for, and and show you our command line interface, our web dashboard, and answer some questions about how to easily spin up substrate-based blockchain nodes with Gantry. So you might know of us. So we run a company called FlexDApps. We've been building blockchain applications for over two years now. Where most of us are based in Melbourne, but we have a distributed team. And well, you might have seen us on the circuit at hackathons or at Web3 Summit. Without further ado, I'll kick it over to you, Tom.
Thank you, mate. So we are going to take a look at, I'm going to show you a few things. So first of all, I'm going to show you the Gantry CLI and leveraging Gantry in order to spin up some Polkadot nodes. And then I'll show you, once we've got that sort of up and running, I'll walk you through the config file that we've used to sort of instrument that. And then I will we'll probably take a look at the Gantry dashboard, which is a way that you can do sort of the same thing, but with a web interface, which is a little bit more user-friendly. So I've never used Crowdcast before, so bear with me. So I try to share my screen and tell me if you can see my sweet terminal, Alex.
I can see it, and it's sweet.
Excellent. Thank you. I am going to start Gantry up. So I'm going to say Gantry CLI, synchronize my infrastructure, and I'm going to leverage this particular config file. So, project name is too long. All right. Good job I tested this one, wasn't it? So let's get that going. Oh, validate a key path. Look at me go. I swear I did all this beforehand. Talk amongst yourselves. There we go. All right, let's go. A couple of false starts, but this time it's going to work, I promise. So Gantry is now sort of spinning up some infrastructure, but what infrastructure exactly? What have I told it to do? Well, let's take a look at the config file that I've used to tell Gantry what to do. So in this config file, we're defining the infrastructure that we want Gantry to create. And within that infrastructure config is the binary that we want it to execute. So the particular substrate node code that we want it to run, and some options that we want it to sort of pass to that binary, and some details about where we want it to create the instances that it's going to use to execute that binary. So first up, you can see that we're sort of grabbing a binary from a particular URL. Now, we don't have to do this. We could use Gantry to create some instances which compile a Git repository and then execute the result of that compilation. So if you don't want to just go and download a binary, you're able to do that. And so compilation is obviously very effective during a development workflow where you might be making a lot of changes to your binary. But for the purposes of speed, we've just told Gantry to go and grab a Polkadot binary and then execute that. We are not specifying sort of a chain argument for the binary, so it's just going to execute the sort of the binary as it is. And we're going to use the chain spec that's sort of built into the binary instead of trying to create our own. Then we're telling Gantry to create a couple of nodes. So you can see that this nodes object here within the config file is an array. And this can be, as long as we want it to be. We could use Gantry to spin up one node, or we could use it to spin up thousands if we cared to. We're telling these nodes that they should be validators. Now, this actually doesn't make a lot of sense in the context of this sort of Polkadot binary, but these nodes will be sort of executing with the validator flag on. So if we did want to nominate them at some point, we'd be able to do that. And here are some options that we're passing to the binary just kind of as a string. So we're telling it to submit the telemetry to the sort of default Polkadot telemetry sync. And that means we'll be able to go and have a look at what Gantry is reporting over on telemetry.polkadot.io once it's finished, and some details about the actual instance that is being created in order to execute this binary. So at the moment, we're leveraging DigitalOcean. This can also be set to AWS or GCP. Some details about the size of the instance on DigitalOcean that we're creating, and some details about the region and which SSH key we're going to use to log into it. So that's it. It's a very sort of small, simple config file. It can be a lot more complex than that if you have a lot of options, and there's a full sort of list of the documented options over at GitHub. So if you go to the Gantry, I think it's Gantry-CLI GitHub repository, you'll be able to find documentation about all of those options. So if we go on back to the terminal, we can see it's still working. Now my internet connection at home is pretty terrible, and it does leverage. There's a couple of times where it needs to download something to my local computer and then push it back up to a remote computer. So this
hey Tom,
might take a little bit longer.
I might just recommend that you toggle your video off so that then it makes the terminal bigger for everyone to see. Don't press close video though. That's what I did. I had to get Emily to reinvite me.
Okay, so I can toggle video like this, and now is my screen share a lot larger?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I'm probably not going to go through the config file again. I apologize. Hopefully there's sort of some way within the Crowdcast UI to have made it larger if you needed it to be. But otherwise, I'll post. I'll see if I can post the files that we're using somewhere after this. So now what I will show you is the Gantry dashboard. You got a sneak peek of something that's coming up a little bit later. And the Gantry dashboard is effectively a way to do the same thing that we can do with the Gantry CLI, but via a web interface. So we have a little wizard here. So we can deploy a network. We can give it a name. Let's call it Crowdcast. We can say that we would like that to be on DigitalOcean. Let's make 2 nodes again. Let's make them not validators this time. And let's use the default chain spec. And then you can see we've got a couple of sort of presets here. So if you want, we can spin up a Kusama node, an Edgeware node, or a Polkadot West End node. And in this instance, what I think we're going to do is we're going to deploy a couple of instances of the node template. So this is just the really simple Substrate node template. And I think let's try and submit these to the telemetry sync. So let me go and grab this. Let's see if this will work. There we go. So save that, and let's hit deploy. So in the same way that the Gantry CLI is now going to sort of do a bunch of things in the background in order to get this network up and running, the Gantry dashboard is going to do the same thing. So there are some fundamental differences in sort of the architecture here and where this code is executing. Obviously, if you leverage the Gantry CLI, all of the provisioning code is executing on the local machine, whereas when you're using the Gantry dashboard, all the provisioning code is obviously executing on the application server that's using this. So be aware of that. So that will again take a reasonable amount of time to deploy. I think somewhere in the realm of 5 to 10 minutes. So maybe, Alex, while these two things are going, I'll kind of hand it back to you to talk about a little bit more about the thesis behind Gantry and sort of where we see it going.
Cool, man. Let's do it.
How do I stop screen sharing?
So you've got to mouse over your tiny portrait in the bottom left, and then you stop screen share from there.
Where? I don't see it.
I don't know.
I could turn my video back on. I don't want to close the... Maybe I do just close that video. Yeah, there we go. I think I did it.
Cool.
You want to jump back into the... Do you want to pop your face back into the crowdcast?
Yes. Uno momento. Ooh, my computer sounds like it's taken off like an aircraft carrier. Now, cool. So can you see me and the Prezzo?
Yes.
Cool. Cool. Well, so Gantry, all-in-one infrastructure toolkit for blockchain nodes. We decided that with Gantry that we wanted to have a mission, and that was to empower any organization to be able to cultivate and grow the peer-to-peer economy. We sort of saw again and again in our professional services work that nodes are really complicated, and we thought that a good place to start was by building the things that were going to be necessary to allow people to own a piece of this peer-to-peer economy. So we think that democratizing reliable business-grade node infrastructure is a good aim, a good place to start. And so I guess this sort of brings us to the problem of how complex is it to run node infrastructure. I would describe it as a craft. And if you want to build a blockchain, you want to build a substrate runtime, and you don't have this craft, you need to find dedicated personnel who do. And so this is a really big barrier to entry. This creates an enormous, we're supposed to be building here a sort of a permissionless world where anyone can build and deploy systems. But there's a really, really big price of admission here. And that's being able to sort of hire DevOps personnel or be a DevOps engineer yourself. And so, yeah, you need to hire key personnel or pay for an expensive turnkey solution. So by a turnkey solution, I mean like a managed service provider, like a Bison Trails or Blockdaemon or OnFinality. And so when it comes to hiring these key personnel, there's very few software engineers that have the necessary subject matter expertise of really understanding the blockchain world and the DevOps world. And turnkey solutions don't really work for builders. They're really good for when you want to have the problem abstracted away from you entirely. But when you need to configure things and you need to have control, they're not really appropriate. And also, if you are building a blockchain, you're not acting out your aims. You want to have a distributed network. And so you want to attract various people to run nodes, and you want to have you don't want, you can't bring a product to market if all of your infrastructure is owned by a Bison Trails, for example. So we see there being three key dimensions to productizing this craft and making it easier for anyone to play. And so the first is node management. So by node management, we mean easily deploying, configuring, managing, and tearing down nodes. What we've built with Gantry allows you to do that on your own cloud infrastructure or any machine that you have SSH access to. So that's done through our CLI with a single config file, as you've just seen, or through our web dashboard. The second dimension is analytics and telemetry. So everyone needs to manage node health, and they need to ensure that their nodes don't get sick and that they're well optimized and they're working effectively. And so everyone needs analytics and telemetry server architecture. And we think it's really great that the Parity team has sort of integrated the Prometheus Grafana architecture into Substrate. That's really good. And so we completely automate that telemetry server deployment. The third dimension is monitoring and alerts. And so we see that the node market is growing, but it's also growing in the kinds of nodes that constitute it. And as you all know, with Polkadot and Substrate, we're going to have application-specific blockchains. So the ability to have configurable tools that allow you to measure what's happening with your blockchain, configure alerts and automation rules around different situations is going to be really imperative for people to be able to, not only for blockchain teams to be able to deploy and bring their network to market, but even for exchanges who are going to be managing more and more nodes over time. So this craft is actually going to become more complex over time. And so we think there's a real need for tools that empower people to run their own nodes. And so monitoring alerts should be able to allow you to ensure you're operating the correct strategy or operating profitably, or you have automation rules around security to protect your nodes, for example. So we want to expand on this vision of monitoring alerts. Configuring key metrics for applications, like measuring key metrics for application-specific blockchains is really important. Business logic and automation rules are going to be necessary for security, profitability, health, and analytics. And this is fundamentally like a key technology. And a lot of teams are kind of building the alternative to such a product existing is really everyone has to build bespoke DevOps infrastructure. And I think it's a lot of waste work. People don't need to do that. And it's not a problem. It's an unsexy problem that a lot of people don't want to work on. So our aim is to make deploying your blockchain nodes easy enough that this child with an iPhone can do it. So these are kind of a general purpose platform we think would be relevant to all of these parties. So we think we can make the lives easier for the managed service providers, for wallets, custody providers, crypto exchanges, people building Substrate blockchains, API businesses. We're all like, there's going to need to be sort of Infura-like businesses in the Polkadot ecosystem too. So who's Gantry for? All those people. Initially, teams building Substrate on Substrate. We don't want you to have to deal with DevOps. It's a pain, and everyone's dealing with the same problem. So we should try to abstract those away. Substrate-based node operators. So if you just want to stake on Kusama, you want to deploy Kusama or Polkadot nodes and stake, we want to make an easy interface for you to be able to do that. Professional services companies. So if you are building things for people, you can take our open source tools and you can integrate them into your DevOps sort of workflows to give you increased leverage. And infrastructure as a service companies as well. We think if you can leverage Gantry to automatically spin up nodes to have redundancy, leverage our real-time monitoring alerts, you'll be able to build your business more easily. So the next 12 months, we want to have sort of almost get to the point where we almost have one-click parachains through Cumulus. We want to continue to support the open source community. We want most of what we're doing to be open source, and I think that allows us to build more robust tools. We want to help application-specific blockchains measure success. We want to have a strong focus on these sort of configurable alerts and alerts for node operators. Comprehensive Docker support. Maybe Tom, you could talk about this a bit more, but sort of Docker is very important in the workflows. I know that a lot of people who are grant funded by Web3 have been asked to submit Docker containers. So Docker support is a big focus for us. We want to have more cloud providers. We don't have any Chinese cloud providers at the moment. There's still a few. I think there's about 5 or 6 cloud providers we intend to integrate. In general, we want to enable reliable, accessible, easy to operate infrastructure for Web3. And so here are some pictures of cranes. Please check out Gantree.io. Also shout out to the Fleek team, used to be called Terminal. Our website is hosted on IPFS, thanks to Fleek, which is like the Netlify for IPFS. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, I'm going to dive back in.
Back to you, Tom.
Hello again, mates. Thank you. So our demo is almost complete. You really whipped through that presentation.
Sorry, I should have slowed it down. Maybe let's go to questions. We've got Enitan Williams says, will your product be useful for validators? So yeah, the Gantry web dashboard, if you just want to deploy a validator node, it's an easy way to do it. I think there are many kinds of validators depending on the network. We're going to have specific blockchains in built on Substrate. So we definitely want to internalize more information from people that want to be running validators and help them out. But it's certainly an area where we're very focused on teams that are building at the moment. That's sort of what we understand the most. Yeah. Tom, do you have any thoughts on validators?
Yeah, I mean, we do hope to sort of build Gantry in a manner that ensures it is useful for validators, but we're also very aware of the different security model that exists around setting up validator nodes, especially when it comes to things like Sentry nodes and ensuring that your sort of IP address isn't leaked and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of considerations that we need to make in order to sort of ensure that Gantry can support people who are running validators effectively and safely. And that is something that we are actively looking at supporting, but is sort of, yeah, it's very, very tricky to do correctly and well, but for sure.
Tom says, nice cranes. I really appreciate that, man. We worked really hard on those cranes. Those might be the first stock images I've ever purchased, were those cranes. And also, please, so check out, Liam has linked in the chat, Gantry.io. Check out our website. From there, you can join our Discord server, which we just created. It's brand new. You can also join our Riot channel, community Riot channel, or you can follow us on Twitter. Luke Schoen says he's the first Twitter follower. I appreciate that, Luke. Prepare for some tweets. Disco link.
Tom and Alex, at the bottom under Ask Questions, you have 3 other questions.
So
where
for this. What's
very
that?
good. So Marco, what was the detail with IPFS/Fleek again? Let me find it. So if you go to this URL, I'll post it in the chat. App.fleek.co. It's basically Netlify for IPFS. So you can. I quickly built the. It's great. So shout out to Harrison Hines and who are the other boys from Terminal? Tom.
Matt used to work there, but he doesn't anymore.
Matt doesn't work there. Shout out to Matt Cernick because he's a goodie anyway. But basically, it's a web application that allows you to easily take a GitHub repository and deploy your website to IPFS. So I built that site in Svelte in the last couple of days. So it was really easy. What's the business model for Gantry? How is it monetized? By Henry. Good question. So I think we intend to have a software as a service business where we have a lot of open source tools, and then for the teams that are have a particularly challenging undertaking that they need help with, so like teams building blockchains that are going to need specific kind of support and integrations and features, we intend to corner off certain capabilities as value-added services for like, and have some kind of a premium product. But we're not totally sure yet. We also are mindful that this is a sort of a developing ecosystem, and so we're open to a business model that is going to sort of scale with people's usage as well. But yeah, in general, we're still working it out. But in the short term, we're looking at a software as a service business model with value-added services. How do you fire up your own Substrate binaries? By Marco. I don't understand the question. Tom, how do we fire up our own Substrate binaries? Yeah.
So good question, Marco. I will probably do another screen share real quick just to show you that, because it's pretty simple. But I also am aware of, how did I do a screen share last time? These controls are wonderful.
It should be up. If you mouse over your face, it should be at the top.
I can do video, HD, change camera and mic, or close video. I can't see like a start screen share. Have I broken?
Maybe.
I'm cautious of reloading the page.
Can you do it now?
Given that I
made room.
No, I can't do it now. This is frustrating. Oh well. So I'll try and answer the question verbally, which is not ideal because I did want to show you guys some more things.
Wait, you can, Tom,
share.
do you want to try turning off?
So the config file that we looked at earlier, Marco, had a space. There was a part in there where we specified the URL of the substrate binary. In order to leverage Gantry to deploy your own substrate chain, what you would do is you would change that URL to be that of a Git repository that your all your substrate code was located at, and you would change the key from fetch to repository. That would be much easier to show you with text editor, but and then what Gantry would do is it would download all that code, it would download the Git repository, and then it would compile it. If you don't want that to happen, if you don't want the nodes that Gantry is spinning up or the instances that it's spinning up to compile it, because it takes a really long time, then you can also sort of compile that binary yourself and host it somewhere and point Gantry at the URL, much like we're doing for the Polkadot binary here. Hopefully that answers the question.
Tom, can you hear Emily?
I cannot.
What about now?
Should I refresh?
Yeah, go on.
I'll bring him back.
Bring him back to life. So yeah, guess I'll just kill some dead air. Where we have been working on Gantry. Tom says he kicked himself. We've been working on Gantry since early this year, late last year. So probably in December last year is when we started conceptualizing what we wanted Gantry to be. Cool, Tom's back. And yeah, it's been so far we've run it as an internal project at Flex, and now we're focusing on creating a product company. So we'll be working on Gantry full time. Tom, do you want to see if you can share screen or hear Emily now?
Yeah, I seem to have the option to share my screen again now, which is excellent.
And can you hear me?
So let's. Yeah, I can.
There we go. Okay, we just needed to kick you.
Yeah, sometimes that's all that's required. Alex will tell you all about it. Alex, do you want to close your video? I might do the same.
Yeah, Emily, getting back in.
We got this.
Yeah, there's a dangerous difference between between toggle video and close video.
All right, magnificent. I'm back. Yeah, that's a wonderful. It's very, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I'll reserve judgment on Crowdcast's controls. Okay, so Marco, I'm going to answer your question with a bit more of a demonstration before hopping into sort of the finished demo. So if you wanted to test your own blockchain and you wanted to do it from a Git repository, the config file would just end up looking a little like this. Get rid of this line, and then the URL would just be something with a .git at the end. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is the same. The file name is still the name of the binary that ends up being compiled. So you change that to whatever the output binary is called. And yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. So let's jump over to the terminal again. I've made my font bigger. Can you guys see it this time? Alex, can you read my font?
Yeah, it's pretty clear now.
Yay. So these are the two IP addresses of the machines that Gantry has created for us. So we're going to SSH into one of them and just take a look at what's going on. So we should be able to see substrate lines 50 or so. Oops, lies. And we should be able to see. Oh no, what's happened? So this looks to be something to do with Polkadot. There we go. So it is synchronizing. I thought so. So this is the logs of the sort of Polkadot node. It's doing a lot of failing to extract candidates, but it is syncing. We're at block 5,632. I think if we head on over to the telemetry website, it should appear under the Kusama tab because we executed an old Polkadot binary that's still sort of running the Kusama chain. And you can see I've got a couple of, I've got two sets of Gantry nodes. One I did earlier, just in case everything broke during the demo and we had to SSH into an old one. And this one that we started off, 10, 15 minutes ago at the start of the call. And this is the sort of block that they're up to. So hopefully that's a pretty good sort of overview of how to spin things up and, proof that it works. And what we're working towards sort of in the near future. Oh, so here we have a couple of nodes that are online as well. So these are a couple of these are the node templates, node template nodes that we created via the dashboard. And now these have sort of kicked off and they've started finalizing sort of between each other. So you can see that they've got a block hash, they've got a single peer each because they're just connected to each other. And we can see some simple metrics about sort of memory usage, CPU usage, bytes per second, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty basic at the moment. As Alex mentioned, we are sort of looking to develop something a lot more complex in the sort of telemetry and alerts side of things and monitoring and analytics. And the way that we're going to do that, as mentioned, is by leveraging the underlying architecture of Prometheus and Grafana within sort of Substrate. And so this is an example of the types of dashboards that we'll be able to allow users to create with Gantry in the very near future. So these are a couple of nodes that we've had running for a couple of days. I think they're following the current Polkadot chain. I could be wrong. It might be Kusama. And yeah, it must be Kusama with this block number. And you can see that there's a bunch of sort of fairly detailed metrics that we can get from these nodes. We can basically ask it for pretty much anything. And if you're a team building a blockchain and you choose to expose metrics to the Prometheus server or expose metrics to Prometheus, you'll be able to pull those metrics in on the Grafana dashboard that you'll have access to through the Gantry app. So for example, we could go and add another metric here. Let's add a single stat, and then let's go and say Polkadot block height. So let's just go and grab the latest block. And then, I don't know how to use Grafana. Denver had to teach me how to do this. So I'm pretty sure that this should update. Oh, it only updates when you click away from it. That's right. Yeah, there we go. So now we can see, we have this latest block. We could stick that on our dashboard. I'm not exactly sure how you do that. It might just appear. There we go. There it is. Beautiful. Look at this graph. It's beautiful. Obviously, you can be a lot better at configuring graphs than me, like Denver is. But yeah, so these are the types of sort of views that we want people to be able to customize, and you can leverage all the functionality of Grafana, such as its kind of inbuilt alerting system, and so on. Yeah, so hopefully that's a pretty good overview of Gantry and the technology. Maybe either, I don't know, I'll throw it back to you, Alex, or whether if we've got some questions, now is probably a good time to answer some of those.
So I mean, that's really all of the materials that we'd prepared to go through, and I guess we didn't have any pleasantries absent our podcast host. But does anyone want to have any questions or want to get into nitty gritty, socialize what they're working on, and if it could be leveraged by Gantry, or if it could leverage Gantry. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap probably. Thank you, Henry. Henry says great stuff.
You should turn your video back on, Alex. You just
I am
lucky.
I did turn my video on.
Oh, I can't see you.
I'll turn it. I'll toggle it off and on again. Can you see me now?
Nope. That's all right.
No.
Talking. Oh. I'll deal with it talking blocky. Everyone else can see you.
All good. Cool. Well, that's all we had prepared. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. What would be really helpful if you want to help us to keep building Gantry and to make it easier for people to run their own node infrastructure and own a piece of the global peer-to-peer economy that we're all building. We're all trying really hard to build. Go to our website, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Discord, wrangle your friends, tell your mum about Gantry. Be like, hey mum, this was a really great project that I saw online. I think you could really get into DevOps and running node infrastructure. Yeah, that's the extent of what you could do probably.
And don't forget to, if you have any more questions, you can reach us at Alex and Tom at flexsteps.com respectively. Or you can join the Discord and throw some questions in there, or you could add us on Telegram. I'm Tom Nash and Alex is Alexander Ramsey. But yeah, I don't have anything else I want to go through.
Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. Whatever time zone you're in, have a good day, have a good evening, have a good brunch, have a good midnight snack. All right.
Ciao.
Bye.